Today, highlights from a qualifying session yesterday that was very interesting and exciting. And it's all being brought to you by Budweiser Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And by Goodyear Eagles, Goodyear because there really is a difference. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Steve Chassie, and we're here to cover qualifying that was held yesterday here at Michigan International. And Steve, the big story yesterday was really the weather.
Yes, Bob, it was extremely hot yesterday and extremely humid. And the heat brings the oil and the grease to the surface of the racetrack, which makes the racetrack very slippery. And the majority of the drivers were complaining of a very, very large push or an understeer entering the third turn because of the extreme amount of wind they had pushing them also.
Well, Gary Lee and Larry Nuber are also with us today. They'll be talking to some of the drivers as they qualified. We'll be back to begin our highlights of yesterday's qualifying session for the Marlboro 500 right after this. There's a big crowd on hand here at Michigan International Speedway today for an International Race of Champions event. We're here, however, for the Marlboro 500 IndyCar race. We'll have coverage of at 3 o'clock Eastern Time Sunday afternoon. It's part of a big weekend of sports here on ESPN. Climax at 8 o'clock on Sunday night by NFL preseason action. The New Orleans Saints against the Minnesota Vikings. Now let's go to our highlights of yesterday's pole day qualifying for the Marlboro 500. On his warm-up lap is Scott Brayton, driving car number 91. Scott lives not too far from Michigan International Speedway in Coldwater, and he is attempting to become to make his 8th Michigan 500. There you can see his best practice speed. That was, however, turned in a practice session this morning. In the afternoon practice session, he lost about 2 miles an hour, and Steve, I think that can only be contributed to the fact that we've had some very hot weather move in here.
So it seems though most of the cars have lost between 2 and 4 miles an hour between the morning practice session and the afternoon practice session, which can only be attributed to the heat in the racetrack.
Scott Brayton comes off of corner number 4 and is looking for the green flag, and it is given, and here we go with qualifying for the Michigan 500. Scott Brayton has qualified in excess of 200 miles an hour on 11 different occasions. He qualified last year at 206.363 miles an hour. That was good enough for 20th starting position. As far as a finish in a Michigan 500, his best was back in 1981 when he finished in 7th. Scott Brayton on the track on his first of 2 qualifying laps, try to make the field for this year's 500. The white flag is displayed, and Brayton has one more tour of the 2-mile tri-oval here at Michigan to complete his qualification run. And here's the time and speed report. It's 35.420 seconds. That's a speed of 203.275, and he has really dropped off from all of his practice runs.
Well, that's almost a little better than 7 miles an hour slower. And there again, it's much warmer now than it was when they ran 2 hours ago.
And it's about 3 miles an hour slower than last year also. So Scott Brayton will be trying to find more speed from that car as he completes the run. There's the checkered flag, and we have our first qualifier for Sunday's race. And the second lap is faster. It's 34.974 miles an hour. He picked up the speed to 205.867. And so that second lap is his best and will be recorded as his qualification run. 205.867, and now onto the racetrack is Danny Sullivan from Louisville, Kentucky. Danny Sullivan, of course, in the PC-17, powered by the Chevy Indy engine. Of course, that Scott Brayton car was not a Chevy, and we're expecting to see the fastest speeds from the Chevys. There you can see his best practice speed was all the way up to about 216 miles an hour. So Danny Sullivan anticipating a run well in excess of 211 here this afternoon. Last year, he qualified for this race at 210.588 miles an hour.
Danny also had a 2 mile an hour difference between the morning practice session and the afternoon practice session. It will be interesting now to see what difference shows on his qualifying run now that it's warmer.
The The wind is blowing the cars down the backstretch. So, Steve, when they're ready to come into turn number 3, they've got some thinking to do. They're probably going a couple of miles an hour faster into the third turn than they would be if the wind were blowing in that direction.
You are going much faster. I would say probably 5 to 8 miles an hour faster. And also, you have to consider that the car may have a much bigger push than normal because the wind is from behind.
So Sullivan comes out of that second corner and onto the flat backstretch, setting up for corner number 3, and the turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are banked at 18 degrees. Here in the tri-oval in front of the main grandstand, the banking levels out to only 12 degrees. Sullivan comes off the 4th corner. He's about to complete lap number 1 on his qualifying run. The white flag is displayed, and Danny Sullivan's first lap of qualifying is 34.974. And now check that. It's 33 seconds. We're waiting on the report to come in from timing and scoring, but it is in the 33-second record. 33.587. That's a speed of 214.369 miles an hour. So he's just about at the level that he was during the afternoon practice session a couple of hours ago. Drops very low on the racetrack to cross the line and complete the run. So Danny Sullivan becomes our second qualifier of the afternoon, and for the moment, he is on the pole. The second lap is a tick of the watch faster. It's 33.477, 215.073 for Danny Sullivan. Let's go to Larry Nuber, who's with our first qualifier, Scott Brayton.
Well, Bob and Chas, this is not like Indianapolis where you have a chance to wave off, and if we'd had that chance, you'd have waved off, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know if it would have done any good today because the conditions just affected me a little too dramatically, and I tried to do the best job I could and keep it between the fences, obviously.
Now, Sullivan has just qualified. He is not that far off of where he was this morning, but you dropped off significantly. Any way of telling why?
Well, my time, I was making good time down in 3 and 4, and 3 and 4 was the corner that hurt me. It just started to pick up a big push, and I couldn't get the car back without lifting, and so, you know, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, we're in the show, and it's going to be a long 500-mile race, and I think the winning Spirit car will do well.
I think that's a very important point. This is not like qualifying for Indianapolis. Everybody will go out today. There'll be no wave-offs. Nobody will take a second or third chance. They're all going for that front row or starting up front today.
All right, so on the racetrack now is a rookie to Michigan International Speedway. This is John Jones, who is leading the current kart rookie standings as we head into this race with 24 markers, and of course is going for the Rookie of the Year honors that will be handed out at the end of the year. One more lap signal given by Nick Finaro, the official starter, and next time around it will be the green flag for John Jones. Well, Chas, Scott Brayton makes a good point. He said that he had to lift because he had a push in the car. If a car is set up right here, you don't lift. You go flat out, right?
Hopefully you don't lift. You drive the car with the throttle on the floor until something happens. If you do lift, just one little quick lift will lose you 2 miles an hour or better. And when you have a strong push like Scott had, you get way back out of the throttle, and he lost 5 miles an hour just because of doing that.
Green flag flies for John Jones, and he is on his qualification run. Jones, as we mentioned, has no record here at Michigan International Speedway. He is on lap 1. This driver hails from Canada.
You know, he's an excellent road racer. He is trying to find his way on the fast ovals, and he's getting better each time, but as of yet, he really hasn't been feeling comfortable.
As far as his performance on road courses this year, he has finished 7th the last 3 consecutive races. So a very consistent year so far for John Jones. The white flag displayed. One more circuit around, and John Jones has a time of 36.335, 198.156. So he's our first to not break the 200-mile-an-hour barrier. This is an awesome racetrack, Steve. When you come here and look at the high banks and the flat backstretch, you wonder, gee, these cars, you know, have got to be really on the ragged edge every time. They hold a rookie practice here to give those who have no experience on this track an opportunity to get out and run some laps before they actually go into a practice session with the veteran drivers. And I'm sure that's very important. We'll talk about that here in just a second when we get the second lap in from John Jones. But what's it like to come here as a rookie and to tackle this racetrack?
If you haven't had any sprint car type experience riding the high banks of Winchester, Salem, or Dayton, and you come here, it's hard to believe. You can't get yourself mentally prepared to run wide open into the corner, up on the bank, and through the corner. It takes a few laps, and it takes a few laps to find out where the groove is here, and that's exactly why they have the rookie orientation.
John Jones' best lap was his first, 198.156. Now, here's the guy who has been the fastest in all of the practices so far, Mario Andretti, about to qualify. But before that, let's go to Danny Sullivan in the pit area.
Well, 4 times this year, this man has sat on the pole, but I don't know, Danny, this does not look like a really solid pole run.
No, I don't think it's going to be one that we're going to really sit on the pole. We were kind of disappointed with the run. The wind took us real bad down in 3 and 4 and pushed the front end away, and that really cost us, because if you have to lift out around here, you're just dead. We didn't really have the balance of way we wanted at the end of the practice session. That's what it's going to take.
You know, the wind really has picked up. Maybe you got a shot at this wind keeps picking up like this and the rain keeps coming.
Well, I don't know. You know, Mario's out there right now. He's run strong, so I don't really want to say anything until it's all over, because it doesn't really matter. And for him, all you got to do is or anybody, all you got to do is get the wind to drop down for 30 seconds, just when you happen to be down there, and that's all it takes.
And Steve and Bob, Mario and Rick Mears have been the 2 speed demons of the week so far here at Michigan.
And we just saw his best practice speed has been a 220.406. That was turned in this morning, was a little bit cooler. His afternoon practice speed was down to 218.838. Let's see what Mario Andretti does here on his first lap of qualifying.
His car looks excellent, Bob. If you watch when he goes through the corner, he's down at the bottom of the groove. That means his car is not pushing. That means he's probably wide open on the throttle. And when you're down low like that, as long as they can hold the throttle down, they're going to go fast.
We've seen lots of grooves here at Michigan. They used to run up a little higher in the banking than they used to, but they repaved it several years ago, and that apparently has allowed them to run lower on the track. Here's Mario crossing the line and completing lap number 1. Let's see if it's good enough to knock Danny Sullivan from pole position. He holds it right now with a 215.073. And here it is. It is 33.562. It's slower than Sullivan's 214.528 miles an hour, so he's going to have to pick up just a little bit to get on the pole.
He lost 4 miles an hour on his first lap there from his last practice period time, so possibly he has a little push also.
All right, the checkered flag drops, and Mario Andretti is in the race, and here it is, and he does it. 33.384, 215.672 miles an hour, and Mario Andretti is on the pole at the moment for the Michigan 500. Mario at 215.6 and Danny Sullivan at 215.0. Back with more qualifying for the Marlboro 500. Back to qualifying for Sunday's Michigan Marlboro 500 IndyCar race. Leg number 2 of the IndyCar Triple Crown. Mario Andretti is on the provisional pole. Here's Gary Lee.
We have seen you in victory lane this season, but we have yet to see you start on the pole. Right now you have it, but not really ideal qualifying conditions, Mario.
I guess we got caught a little bit. The wind was pretty strong, and it did carry me up the bank. I had to get out of it, so I knew that we were in trouble then.
Everybody right now has the very same condition. All the guys that have qualified are complaining about the windy conditions.
Well, yeah, but there's a big cloud coming on, so that could make a big difference, you see, because as soon as the sun just goes under the clouds, that the track picks up grip tremendously. It makes a big difference.
Are you, as a driver, doing anything differently this weekend for your own comfort in the cockpit because it's so hot and humid?
Well, you have to really just prepare days ahead of time with a proper diet, a lot of proper liquids and such, I think, and then it's going to be all right.
All right, on the track now, warming up, Emerson Fittipaldi.
All right, and he is on the backstretch and on a warm-up lap. Emerson Fittipaldi's best practice speed so far this weekend has been at 217.018 miles an hour, and again, that was turned in this morning in practice. Now, Steve, as we watch Emo on the qualification run, can these drivers that go out, or can the drivers that go out later learn anything from the guys who have qualified earlier about the wind and about the heat and so forth?
You can, if you're friendly with another driver and he makes a run before you, he can come in and tell you what the racetrack feels like, if there's grip or no grip, if it's making the car push, and you can make your adjustments to it. Now, Emerson, I'm sure, will give 100% because not only did he win this race once before, this is his sponsor's 500 Marlboro 500 race.
And Emerson, of course, was a near victor in the most recent IndyCar race at the Meadowlands, but an incident between himself and Al Unser Jr. put Emo out of the race, and so he definitely would like to win this race, sponsored by Marlboro, the same as his car. As far as Emerson's record above 200 miles an hour, well, he's qualified 12 times above 200. Here last year, he was 24th on the grids, qualifying at 203.557. The white flag drops. Emerson Fittipaldi has completed one lap, and it is a good lap at 33.629 miles an hour, above 114 miles, or rather 214. It's 214.101. So a good run by Emerson Fittipaldi. That would put him at the moment in third qualifying and starting position. You can see how low on the racetrack the cars run there, coming off of the backstretch down into 3. Now he's off of corner 4. Here's the checkered flag for Emo, and he has made the race. By the way, while we were at break a couple of minutes ago, John Andretti qualified at 206.375, putting himself in his first Michigan 500. The second lap by Emerson Fittipaldi is slower than the first, so his first lap of 214.101 will be his official qualifying time.
I would say he also had a pushing problem. And if you notice, they're running much lower entering the third turn, and that's an adjustment for the push. That gives them more room to stay in the groove before they have to lift off the throttle. Unlike the first turn, which is shrouded by grandstands on the outside, you don't feel the wind when you're entering the corner. It doesn't pin the front of the car like it pushes the front of the car entering the third turn.
Well, we're back live now at Michigan International, and Steve, already yesterday we were beginning to see track conditions changing from the morning and the afternoon practice periods. What can they do, the crews or the drivers, to compensate for the change in the track conditions?
Well, in the past, they were able to use tire stagger to make a slight change. But with the radial tires, they can't change the stagger. They're a set stagger. So what that does, it leaves just a few adjustments they can make. One is they can put more front wing in the car, or they can take some rear wing out of the car, or they could possibly lower the front of the car, which would make the front end stick more. But it's all educated guesswork, and that's what they use the practice time for. They'll make a few changes, and hopefully they can find what makes it right.
All right, well, speaking of aerodynamic changes, there are some in the offing as far as kart racing is concerned in 1989. With that, here's a kart quick fact. Quick Facts are brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has and always will.
The real essence of qualifying speed is not horsepower, but aerodynamics. Now, it begins at the front of the machine with these small fins that stabilize the car and direct the air to the rear of the race car where the real heavy-duty work is done, this inverted airplane wing. You'll hear the drivers talk about trim. That's flattening this wing out to give you as much straightaway speed as possible. But you lose significant downforce in the corners. But somehow, the real racers flatten this wing out just enough to get the job done.
Bobby Rahal, not necessarily spectacular in IndyCar racing this year, but he has been consistent. And here's another team, Steve, that has really done some developmental work on this Judd engine. They have complained about lack of horsepower, but it appears as if they are finding the horsepower with that Judd engine.
they're either finding the horsepower or they're making a combination between freeing the car up to make up for the horsepower. They do seem to have a little bit of a fuel advantage, but you just can't make up for horsepower.
Ray Hall started last year in the Michigan 500 in 7th position, qualifying at over 210 miles an hour. His best finish in a 500 here has been a 3rd. That was in both 1982 and 87. He is attempting to make his 7th start in a Michigan 500. Compare this track, Steve, to Indianapolis, for instance, as far as driving technique. Is there any similarity at all?
No, there's really not that much similarity, because here so much more G-force in the corner, and it's one long corner where you actually have 4 corners at Indianapolis. So here, when you set up for the first turn, you're set all the way through until you come off, and you don't have to do anything for a short shoot like you do in Indianapolis. But it's much more fatiguing here because of the extra G-forces.
And the time and speed report on Bobby Rahal, it's a good one, 33.477 seconds. That's a speed of 215.073, and that is the identical qualification lap that Danny Sullivan turned in. And if the second lap is slower, Danny Sullivan would have the advantage because he qualified first. Now look where Rahal dropped down to on the racetrack there at the checkered flag. Very low. Why does he do that?
Well, you'll do that on the last lap coming down for the checker, because when you come off the 4th turn and you drive down towards the pylons, you're driving off the hill, so you're actually going downhill to the checkered flag. You won't see guys do that on the first lap most times, because then you have to climb the hill back up for your entrance point into the first turn. And it does make some difference. One other thing that makes a difference, I think, Bobby was very smart. He only took 2 warm-up laps. He took his green sooner, 1 lap sooner than he could have, which would save the right front tire from getting overheated and would make the car handle better, wouldn't push so much.
Well, you got to think of every little thing to make the car go just a little bit faster, and that's one of them. Johnny Rutherford, as Bobby Rahal pulls into the pit area. Johnny Rutherford is on the track. Now, this is a very familiar car to race fans. Normally, it's driven by A.J. Foyt, but as many of you know, A.J. has been hospitalized with some stomach internal problems. They're running some tests on him, and he has decided to turn the ride over this weekend to Johnny Rutherford, who was supposed to be up here in the booth with us this weekend doing the color commentary for the qualifications and the race. But instead, Johnny Rutherford is attempting to qualify for his 6th Michigan 500.
And I'm sure he'll do a great job in the car. Do you suppose if I lived closer to A.J., he'd have given me a call?
Well, Johnny, as far as practicing so far this weekend, has moved up to a 214.288 speed. That was turned in earlier this morning, and so we'll see what happens here. He dropped off about 3 miles an hour in the afternoon session here today, so we'll see if that speed drops off even further as the temperature has continued to climb and the track has continued to heat up. He's taken the green flag, and Johnny Rutherford from Fort Worth, Texas, is on his qualification run. He, of course, was the winner of the Michigan 500 back in 1986.
His car looked extremely good going into the first turn, and he was way on top of the groove, so...
He's slowing.
Uh-oh.
Coming in, Johnny Rutherford, after taking the green flag, has decided to come into the pits and nullify that qualification run. So we'll attempt to find out what Johnny Rutherford has determined about that car and why he has come off his qualification run. We are at Michigan International Speedway for qualifications for the Marlboro 500. Andretti, the defending pole sitter and winner of the Michigan 500, is on the track warming up for his qualification run. Larry Newber down to the pit area with Bobby Rahal.
Well, Steve Chassie was complimenting you on your technique. You took one less warm-up lap than you needed, and then talking about driving off the bank in the 4th turn. First of all, 1 less warm-up lap makes a difference.
Well, these tires, they warm up right away around a place like this. So the longer you stay out there, the less traction you're going to get. So you might as well just get it over with. And really, with the wind the way it is, it's so, you know, 1 minute, my first lap, it wasn't too bad. The second lap, it blew me around more in 1 and 2, and I think I lost a little bit of time there. And I actually think I got through 3 and 4 a little bit better, but I lost so much in 1 that didn't make any difference. So, you know, you might as well just go out and get it done.
When you roll off that hill on the last lap, can you feel the roller coaster ride coming downhill?
I don't know if you can or not, but everybody else does it, so I guess you got to do it too.
Okay, Bobby Rahal in very solidly.
Very much so. Bobby Rahal at the moment in third place with a 2:15.073 third on the grid. Michael Andretti has switched to a Lola for this particular event. He's been driving the March, of course, during the entire earlier part of the season, but he switched to Lola for this event.
That could be good and it could be bad. The Lolas seem to have been a little better on the long tracks, but now he's in a development program once again, where he had his March fairly well developed. Now he's starting from ground zero again.
His first lap was 34.493 seconds, 208.738 miles an hour, and that's down a couple of miles an hour from what he practiced at earlier today. And here is the checkered flag being given. And the second lap is slower, so Michael Andretti qualifies at 2:08.738. Roberto Guerrero will be our next qualifier as Michael Andretti drops low on the racetrack and heads for the pit area. And here is Roberto Guerrero about to take the green flag for his qualification run. What an up-and-down season it's been for Roberto. He is coming back from a 2-race vacation. Just wanted to take some time off and get away from the sport of racing that he loves so much because of things that have happened previously this year with a couple of crashes and the car just not performing the way that Roberto wants it to perform. So he sat out 2 races, but now is back for the Michigan 500.
Well, I think he answered all the Railbirds' questions about his ability, because they've had Al Unser Sr. in this car, and Al's an excellent race driver, as we all know, and his performance was no better than Roberto's in the car. So I would have to say that there's a car combination problem they have to overcome.
Well, Roberto Guerrero started 11th in last year's Michigan 500, qualifying at 209.833. And so far in practice this year, he has been up to 210.496. So let's see how the qualification run goes for Roberto Guerrero. He was a little bit high there going into the corner. In fact, I think he made a tire mark up there, and he looks to be high coming off of corner number 2 also.
You know, it's hard to tell. You couldn't see the front tires in a push condition, so possibly the car is a little loose. Maybe they overcorrected for the push condition, and when the car is loose, you're afraid to turn the wheel. It gets real high because you turn very gingerly on that wheel.
Here comes Roberto out of corner number 4. He's got the green flag, and Roberto Guerrero is on his qualification run. 13 times he's been over 200 miles an hour in a qualification effort.
He's entering the corner higher than most people, and that's basically what the groove is. So his car must feel better than the other cars. They may have made the adjustments necessary.
So Guerrero going rather low into corner number 3. Drifting high out of corner number 4. Now onto the tri-oval, completing lap number 1. See how Roberto Guerrero does. Remember, his best practice speed was 210.496. Here it is. It's 34.902 seconds, 206.292. So he, too, has lost more than 4 miles an hour.
But that's closer to his afternoon speed. His afternoon speed was a 205.245, so he didn't really lose from his afternoon speed. He's actually picked up a little bit for his qualifying run.
The Vince Granatelli-owned car, sponsored by STP, now takes the checkered flag. And Roberto staying high on the racetrack, unlike we have seen some of the other drivers do and dive down off the banking and cross the finish line very low on the racetrack. Roberto chose to stay up on the higher grooves. Second lap is 34.796. That's 206.920. Second lap is the quicker. Let's go to Gary Lee with Johnny Rutherford.
John, you aborted the run. You came in. You were still strapped in the cockpit. I looked at some crew members, and they just simply pointed back to the valve, which was then on its way to a tech office. What's the problem?
I went out with everything set just like we had finished practice this morning, and the valve was popping off from when I left the pits. I couldn't even shift through the gears, and it was popping in my ear. I have that tube in it, and it was getting very hot and hissing loudly. And I kept turning the knob down to get the boost down, you know, to try to catch it. I came clear to the stop, and it was still just blowing away. So I came in. There wasn't any point running with the valve lifted.
So right now, CART is looking at the valve. You may get the run all over again with a new valve?
I think so. We didn't complete that timed lap. We pulled in on, I took the green, but I didn't finish the lap. Now, I don't know what the ruling's going to be there. That would constitute, you know, one lap or the start of one. I gave it up, but we've got to see what they say about the valve, because it was definitely wrong. I don't know, you know, why the thing was blowing that way, but it was, and it was hurting us badly in the speed and power department.
Well, as John awaits word from CART, we can check in with Larry Nuber, who's standing by with Michael Andretti.
Well, while you're looking at the long Michael Andretti face, let me remind you, he is the only non-Chevy to win either a race or a pole this year. Disappointed in the qualifying run today, but how did the Lola feel?
Lola feels great. You know, that's not our problem. It's the engine. You know, we just don't have any horsepower, and the problem is we're down on the other cars where it's not just the Chevrolet, and that's the part that makes it tough. But you know, we're just trying. I'm going flat all the way around, and that's about all we could do. So just got to keep working at it.
And one other thing I'll remind all of you of, particularly those in the booth, here's a guy who won last year, Bob.
So on a very windy day at Michigan International Speedway, we're qualifying for the Marlboro 500. We'll be back with Al Sr.'s qualification run for Sunday's 500-mile IndyCar race. Stay with us. Four-time Indianapolis 500 winner Al Unser Sr. is on the racetrack, attempting to qualify for his 7th Michigan 500. His record here, not all that impressive in 500-mile races. He was 3rd in both 1982 and in 87. The green flag is out, and Al Unser Sr. begins his qualification run. Now, you'll notice that this car has wheel covers on all 4 wheels. Why do they run those, Steve?
Well, they seem to think that in the wind tunnel testing that the wheel covers or a dome wheel helps the air travel around the tires and the wheels and makes it much slipperier. Whether it does or not for sure, I can't say. I have never seen the wind tunnel test, but I know the cars have run very fast with this type of wheel.
Off of corner number 4, and Al Unser Sr. completes lap number 1 of qualifying. Let's see how it goes. His best practice speed has been 217.523. It's not quite that fast, but it's good. It's 33.631 miles an hour, or rather seconds, and a speed of 214.088. And that would put him 5th on the grid. Senior off of corner number 4 once again. And the checkered flag is out. Al Unser Sr. completes the run. And the time and speed report on lap number 2. It is faster, 33.324, and a speed of 216.060, and that is the pole to this time. And now son, Al Unser Jr. moves on to the racetrack to attempt to qualify for the Michigan 500. Little Al is at the top of the CART point standings as we head into this event. Al Unser Jr. started this race last year from 13th position, qualifying at 208.056. There you can see his best practice speed is above 218. And if he can achieve that, he'll knock Al Unser Sr. off the pole. Let's go to the pit area.
Thanks, Bob. Well, not only is Al Unser Sr. the provisional pole, but he's been the most consistent runner we've seen the last couple of days. You've had 216, 217 all along. You couldn't keep up with Rick and Mario 220, but today another solid 216, 217.
Well, that's the wind's blowing, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with the car. I'd like to, just like everybody, I'd like to go on a little bit quicker, but Rick's going to, you know, be the one to do it. He's running really well, and he just has it down that little bit that we can't find.
Considering the conditions, it's very warm down here and very windy. You must be pretty satisfied, though, by and large.
Well, I am, yes. With the wind blowing like it is, I was a little worried that the car was going to change, and it did a little bit, but that's just something you adjust yourself to, and hopefully you can pull it off. We made it, so.
Well, your son Al Jr. is on the track right now, and I was kidding with Rick Gallis before we started qualifying. He said, well, hope the rain comes. I said, yeah, maybe we'll scrap qualifying and start by points. He'd start pretty close to the front, wouldn't he?
All right, so here is Al Jr. on his first lap of qualifying. Will Jr. be able to knock his dad off the pole position? We'll know in just a second here. Here comes Al Jr. crossing the stripe. Lap number 1 is completed. He's shooting for a 33.324, doesn't get it. It's 33.565, but it's a good lap, 214.509. But he's going to have to pick it up, Steve, if he's going to knock Dad off the pole on this lap. And as we've indicated before, that the tires probably are heated up much too much at this point.
They are, and also he ran down off the 4th turn to the cones on the first lap, which they say takes some speed off the car into the first turn by climbing the hill.
Well, you can see that he clearly did it again, dropping very low at the start-finish line. The second lap is a little bit faster, but not by very much. It's 33.544, a speed of 214.643 for Al Unser Jr. There you can see Arie Luyendyk strapped in his race car, getting set to go out for his qualification run. We'll have it in just a moment. All right, thanks, Cliff. We're back at Michigan International Speedway, where the International Race of Champions has just begun. Reminder, Speed Week on Thursdays at 7:30 Eastern Time, with all the latest news and results from the world of motorsports. And the NFL preseason game at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, the Saints and the Vikings, and our coverage flag to flag of the Marlboro 500 tomorrow here at Michigan. Now we go back to highlights of qualifying. We're qualifying at Michigan International Speedway for Sunday's Marlboro 500. And on the racetrack right now is Arie Luyendyk, and he has taken the green flag. Arie Luyendyk attempting to make his 3rd Michigan 500. Last year, he started in 12th position, qualifying at 209.065. His best practice speed so far is 215.827. But we have not seen a single driver, Steve, improve from a practice speed turned in earlier today.
Not yet, but it's very possible that Arie could do it. Arie has impressed me more this year than I think any other driver on the circuit, and I think he and Gilbert Lage, the Frenchman who's the chief mechanic on his car, they must have a good line of communication because they're always quick.
34.268 seconds, 210.109 for Arie Luyendyk, and it's a good run for him. That moves him right now 8th on the grid. Remember, the pole is still held by Al Unser at 216.060. Here's Arie Luyendyk's final lap. He drives the car down low on the track at the start-finish line and takes the checkered flag. The second lap is faster. It's 34.051 and a speed of 211.448 miles an hour. So Arie Luyendyk is solidly in the field. Rick Mears is getting strapped in his PC-17 with Chevy Power as he gets set to qualify in just a few moments. However, before he takes to the racetrack, Tom Sneva will be attempting to qualify for a 500-mile race. Tom Sneva, about to come around to take the green flag, is one of only 3 drivers who have qualified for all 7 previous Michigan 500s. The other drivers are Scott Brayton and and Rick Mears. Tom Sneva, driving car number 71, started 27th in the 1987 Michigan 500, qualifying at 2:07.773. He's reached 210 miles an hour in practice this year. 32 times he has qualified above 200 miles an hour, and here he comes off the fourth corner, taking the white flag. We'll know in just a moment how fast Tom Sneva is going out there. And it's a 34.726. Not all that great. 207.337.
He's not using all the racetrack, so apparently his car doesn't feel all that good to him. He's about a car width off the entry in the first turn, and he's running in the middle of the racetrack near the bottom in 3 and 4.
Sneva off the fourth corner. He'll dive low off the banking and cross the stripe, taking the checkered flag. It is a 34.613 second lap. It's faster than the first, 208.014. So that will put Tom Sneva in the field, but not nearly as far up as he hoped it would. Right now, he is 11th on the grid. We'll be back with more qualifying for the Marlboro 500 after this. Unknown reason at the moment went out onto the track, but came right back in without taking the green flag. He is, however, still eligible for the pole, of course. He did not take the green flag and will have 2 full laps coming to him. But the question is, why did he come off the racetrack? We'll try to answer that question in just a moment. Meanwhile, it's Gordon Johncock, who has taken to Michigan International Speedway, trying to qualify for his 5th Michigan 500. His last time he competed here was in 1984. And Steve, you made a good observation as this car went onto the racetrack. He's got 4 brand new sticker tires on that car, and I don't think we've seen that previously. Why would he do that?
Well, I'm not sure exactly why we haven't seen it, but the reason that you see a car go out on 4 sticker tires is because they feel that a brand new tire has a little edge over a tire that's had some running on it. Now, with the radial tires, there's no problem with the stagger, so what you get on it as a start, you'll end up with stagger, so it won't change the car.
We'll see how it works out for Gordon Johncock. He has been rather impressive during practice so far this weekend. His best qualifying speed, 213.897. He's in turn number 3 now, low on the racetrack. Johncock off of corner number 4, and the white flag is being displayed. 1 more lap to go. Gordy with the throttle down here through the tri-oval. The first lap for Johncock is 34.174. That's 210.686. So it is a good run for Gordy. He's got a lot of experience on this racetrack.
A good run, and plus he's also using all of the racetrack. On his entry into the first turn, he had dust between he and the wall, so he's going for it.
Let's see how things work out here on lap number 2. Here he comes off of the fourth corner, and the checkered flag is displayed. Gordon Johncock is qualified for the Marlboro 500. And the time and speed report on lap number 2. It's 33.764, a good lap for Gordy, 213.245 miles an hour. Let's go to Gary Lee.
Well, Rick Mears has always been fast in qualifying. He's also very cautious. He went out, he picked up a very big push. He was not sure it was the wind or perhaps it was something with the front suspension. He came in, took a note of precaution. They have looked over the front suspension. Everything appears to be okay. They've changed the front tires. He is shortly ready to go back out, but it could have just been the wind, but he was taking no chances.
Derek Daly is on the racetrack now and has already taken the green flag. And Derek has been trying to decide all weekend whether he wanted to qualify the regular number 10 or the 10X. And he has chosen 10X, his so-called backup car, to try to get in the field. There you can see his best practice speed, 213.967. Steve, he was very high coming off of corner number 2, almost all 4 wheels into the gray.
Once again, we couldn't tell. The car looks maybe just a little bit loose. It's a little twitchy. But if it doesn't get any worse than that, it could be a good lap. Derek runs real hard. He's been up and down this year. But his first lap is a good one. It's a 33.875 at 212.546. A good run for Derek.
Very much so. In fact, that is the 8th fastest to this point. Gordon John Cox, 2:13.215, was the 7th fastest. And now Derek Daly has a very good run going. Here he is about to complete the run. And the checkered flag is being displayed. Let's see if Derek picked it up on lap number 2. It's 33.722. Yes, it is faster than lap number 1. It's 213.510. And Derek Daly is the 7th fastest qualifier. Well, the sun-baked crowd in the grandstand has its eyes on the racetrack because that's where Rick Mears is at the moment. The Penske team saving the dramatics of this qualifying session until the end. Rick went out a few minutes ago. He was not happy with the way the car was handling. They made some adjustments. He did not take the green flag, and now he is back out on the racetrack to attempt to qualify. There you can see he holds the all-time qualifying mark. And he is at the top of the list as far as drivers number of times over 200 miles an hour in a qualifying run. And here's the white flag indicating one more lap to go, and you had the stopwatch on him last time, Steve. What was he doing?
On his warm-up lap, he ran a 2:14.61.
Apparently, he only gets one lap because he did pass his spot in the qualifying order because Nick Finoro dropped the white flag when he came by. So Rick Mears is going to have to make this lap count. Here he is moving through the 3rd and 4th turns. He's looking for a 2:16.060 to put him on the pole. Let's see if he does it. The checkered flag drops. Mears. 218.427. So Rick Mears does it, and he does it in fine style by more than 2 miles an hour. He knocks Al Unser Sr. off the pole position. Rick Mears' time was a 32.963 second lap and an average speed of 218.427 miles an hour. So we have 2 Penskes in the front row, Rick Mears and Al Unser, and Mario Andretti is 3rd fastest qualifier. We'll be back to talk with Rick Mears after this from Michigan International. Has just done it. Rick Mears on the pole for the Marlboro 500 at 218.427. Let's go to Larry Nuber.
Well, Bob, it's the 3rd time this year Rick has sat on the pole, and you certainly looked like the favorite going into today, but it wasn't a routine pole, was it?
No, it wasn't. We had, we put on a new set of tires to qualify, and I went out, and the wind was blowing much stronger, really, than we'd run in today. When I went into turn 3, I lost the front end completely, and, it was so bad. I thought there was a problem with the car, so I just waved it and came in to check everything out and make sure it was all right. So we just changed the set of tires, went back to an old set of tires that we had, just in case there was anything there, and went back out, and it was much better, but the wind was the biggest factor, I think, that caused it. It just caught me with a big gust at the wrong time, which blew the front end out, but I had to stop and check it and make sure.
You know, even though you've had a strong week and you felt comfortable going in to qualify, you still have to hang it out and grit your teeth a little bit, don't you, to turn in one of those quick laps when it counts?
Absolutely. And when the conditions change and you watch everybody else, but you still don't know until you actually get out there yourself with your car. And you've just got to, feel the thing out as you go, and hopefully it's going to be in the ballpark or in the range that you want it in.
Rick holds the overall record here at 2:23, and that was set, of course, in a different race car. He's also set an unofficial world's record on this racetrack. I just wonder how fast the new Penskes would go if totally unleashed at Michigan International.
Well, our Pole Sitter interview has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagles. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. And we'll be back to wrap up the entire starting lineup for Sunday's Marlboro 500 here on ESPN right after this. Live now at Michigan, we might remind you that Roberto Guerrero's car was disqualified, but he qualified the backup car, and Johnny Rutherford got his problems corrected. He also is in the field. So we're set for the Marlboro 500 at 3 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. Steve, what can we look for in that race?
Bob, at the Michigan Marlboro 500, the only thing we can say at this time is that we know we will see a very fast, exciting race.
Well, besides our coverage of the Marlboro 500 tomorrow at 8:20 live, we'll have the Hungarian Grand Prix for you here on ESPN as we have 2 big auto racing events tomorrow. And then, of course, our coverage, flag to flag, of the Marlboro 500.